What's up guys, and welcome back to Gabe Miller Music. Today I'm going to be showing you the making of a beat on the MPC One. I'm using a combination of custom samples and stuff I got off of Splice using the Splice integration, including a loop that I chopped up and flipped into the beat that you heard in the intro. So without any further introduction, let's start off with the drums. And then I've also got this hi-hat here, which I've got a note repeat. Let me make sure that's set to 1/64th notes, so when I hold it down, get the note repeat, which is how I did the hi-hat ratchet. Most of these sounds have quite a bit of processing on them, so let me dive into that next. Go to Program Edit. First of all, this kick has a maximizer on it to get some extra volume out of it, an EQ, and that's mostly there to tame a little bit of low end. And I've got the ducker input because the sample chop and the 808 are getting sent through that, and I'll get to that in a second. The clap has quite a bit done to it. This, if you can even believe it, was sampled from a stylophone. If I get rid of the envelope, that's the full thing. Kind of a nasty sound. So I've got the envelope shortening that a bit, and then I've got effects, including EQ, reverb, and a maximizer. That's a bit loud, but I've got a maximizer on my master as well, and so that kind of informed a couple of kind of weird mixing decisions, admittedly. Nothing on the hi-hats other than some volume control. This one's got a compressor on it, and it's pitched down quite a bit. And then this snare, which I haven't introduced yet, this will be in a B section of the beat. So this is sampled off of my model cycles, and then if I add the effects, that brings out extra transient and then distorts it just a little bit. I don't have it on too intense. So that's it for the drums. So next up, let's get into the sample chop. This is from a Splice loop. It's not even in the tempo of the song, so I'm really kind of changing the intent behind it, which I think is cool. Let me show you how that's set up, because this is something that took me a second to figure out. I've gone ahead and created an entirely new track, and I've got Program 02, which is a mostly blank drum bank, with the only thing being the original sample. You heard from that little snippet that it tried to time stretch it to the beat. That's not what we want in this case, so I'm going to go to Sample Edit rather than Program Edit, and I've told it what the BPM is, and then if I hit Trim, that will take me to all the slicing tools. In this case, I chose BPM, and since it knows what the BPM is, it'll just go through and create regular chops across the sample. From there, you can hit Shift, Convert, and it'll create a new drum program. So I'm going to hit Do It. Then from there, I don't need to deal with this anymore. I can go to Main and then change my program to the newly created one, which should just be automatically populated with all of those chops. And it is. That worked perfectly. I can adjust where some of these chops sit, which I think I did in a few cases, and then I can start to add effects. This is a drum track, so I don't want to add effects on a pad-by-pad basis. You absolutely could do that, but in this case, I don't want to. And I should also mention that this is automatically set to mono for a chop, which is exactly what I want. I want every single sample to cut the previous one off, and you can also use mute groups for a little bit more fine control. So right now, I'm going to go to the actual track that's actually used in the song, and in order to add effects to the entire thing all at once, I go to Track Mix, and then I can control effects on a track-by-track basis. That way I can already have the reverb and delay and ducker that you probably were already noticing. So that's all living on this track, and if I go into these inserts, I can access all those parameters. So let me turn off all of the effects so you can hear what they do individually. EQ. Tighten up the low end to bring out some extra high end. Delay. Which really brings that to life. A little bit of reverb. And then finally, the ducker. I don't have it too intense, but I do want to have a little bit of that pumping going on. Up next, let's get into the 808. In this case, I'm doing a pretty simple pattern, something like... something like that. And this is, once again, a sample that I've loaded in this case, into a key group program. If I go to Program Edit, let me show you what this sounds like without effects, because I've done a lot here. That already sounds pretty good, but I want to stick out more in the mix. So I've got this fairly aggressive distortion. Ducker, pretty subtle, but once again, I want to duck it to the kick. Can't really hear that in isolation. And then, once again, an EQ to gain me some headroom back and clean up some of that low end, because it was all getting to be a bit much. So that's the main section of this beat. And then I've also got a little B section that I mentioned earlier. Mostly the same as the other one, except of course for the snare pattern, and then I've added in that model cycles snare that I showed you earlier. I should also very quickly show you the mastering I've got going on. To get to that, you go to the different mixer track types, go to masters, and then you'll be able to add stuff to your master track. In this case, just a little bit of EQ once again to clean things up a bit. And then I've got this maximizer on here, just doing a bit of gain reduction, catching any peaks, and pumping the whole thing in a way that I think kind of makes it hit a bit harder. If you'd like to see my first week with the MPC One, including more beat making, you can click or tap up over here. And if you'd like to see a much cheaper way to intuitively chop and flip samples, you can click or tap down over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with a new video in a little bit.